Вітаємо всіх. Thank you everybody for coming here today. We're going to be beginning our program now. My name is Andrij Dobriansky, representing the United Ukrainian American Organizations of New York, the Ukrainian Congress Committee, and of course today at the United Nations, the Ukrainian World Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, New York. Thank you, New York State. Thank you, United States. Thank you, all of you, for being with us here today. I mention the entire country because this weekend, not only do we have massive rallies in the nation's capital, but from Hawaii to Puerto Rico, from Miami to Seattle, from Maine to Phoenix, Arizona, ordinary, everyday Americans like you and me have gathered to remember a very solemn day. A solemn day that many of us will never be able to wrench from our hearts. Hearts that many of us will never be able to put back together. That is the case because on February 24th, 2022, rockets began raining down across Ukraine, the first rocket attack on the capital of Ukraine since the Nazi invasion. Since that time, we have seen enemy forces enter the Ukrainian territory, step by step, meter by meter, village by village. They have occupied towns. They have taken everybody inside and filtered them into so-called filtration camps. Sometimes these are outside the territory of Ukraine, like in Belarus, or in the neighboring territory of the invader. They will be asked, have you ever been a member of the military? Have you ever been a member of the police? Is a family member a member of a Ukrainian organization? Show us your body. We want to see your tattoos. They are kept in filtration camps, and if they determine to be too Ukrainian, many of them are kept in locked rooms, forced nudity in confinement with their other fellow Ukrainians, tasered while in the shower. One report by the Office of Human Rights for the United Nations talked to a released prisoner who said a taser was used on his body by a Russian soldier who told him, I will keep tasing you until you're never able to bear children again. And this is why we gather today, not to shrink, not to stay quiet, but to remember that it is the first time since 1939, 1941, when rockets rained down on Kyiv. And it is the first time since we all made a promise, since we all watched the trials at Nuremberg, that never again will we let torturers, rapists, attackers go off with a peace deal and no consequences. This is why we gather. This is why Ukrainians don't greet each other with a simple hello. Ukrainians greet each other with Slava Ukraini. Ukrainians greet each other with glory, because it is not enough to simply be Ukrainian. If that's the case, then my friends, why did those Ukrainians leave Hawaii and Antarctica and parts far off in the world to return to Ukraine when the war started? They could have simply stayed where they were. They could have sang in the French Opera House and not be killed on a battlefield because they believed in glory. Slava Ukraini. And for all those who think that Ukrainians are satisfied to sit quietly while people tell us what's best for us, as they did in centuries past, we will smile at them and we will reply, Slava Ukraini. And when those officers and government officials who decided that it was fine to order this invasion don't fall out of windows, but they stop being, we will look at them and smile and say, Slava Nazi. Щиро дякую вам. Ladies and gentlemen, it is great to be with you. Again, as I mentioned, we have had multiple events across the United States, but here in New York, it's something special. Here in New York, as the mayor has often said, the city with the most Ukrainians out of all the cities in this country, we gather here as we have since the beginning of the large war, the expansion of the war on February 24th, 2022. And we do this with the great generosity of our good friend and first speaker, Arthur Piccolo. Arthur.
Thank you for returning here on behalf of myself, Arthur Piccolo, Chairman of the Bowling Green Association, and Vice Chairman Ibrahim Koutulis. Thank you for coming back here again and again. We are so proud that you keep coming back here again and again. For 3 years now, it was soon after the invasion that we raised the Ukrainian flag for the first time at the beginning of March 2022, and the Ukrainian community have been back again and again. We have now raised the Ukrainian flag and flown it more here than any other flag we have ever flown here, except for the American flag, going all the way back to 1996, when we started flying flags of other nations. Someone suggested that I should keep my remarks positive because that's a better tone. I can't change my view of what's going on here, you know. The fact is, as I say, and as President Zelensky keeps saying, and very famously said over the weekend, Ukraine must be given NATO membership. He's even willing to resign for Ukraine to get NATO membership. When the Russian troops started amassing near Ukraine, if the West was brave enough to say, we are giving Ukraine NATO membership, there never would have been an invasion. If any time since then, the West had been willing to say, we are offering NATO membership to Ukraine, that would have ended. Anyone who thinks that Vladimir Putin or his boss, General Z, President Z, would let him start a nuclear war because he's not allowed to invade Ukraine is nonsense. He's not that suicidal. But what happens? President Biden, now President Trump, what are the two things they always say whenever they talk about Ukraine? They start with two statements. We will not support NATO membership Ukraine, and we will not put American soldiers in Ukraine. Basically, giving away the two strongest abilities to settle this and telling Putin he can win a negotiation. And what do we have now? What does Ukraine get for this? This is the recent headlines. Wall Street Journal. U.S. doubles down on pushing Ukraine to make mineral deal. Financial Times. Washington opposes phrase Russian aggression in G7 Ukrainian statement. Let me repeat that. Washington opposes the phrase Russian aggression in G7 statement. And finally, Trump calls Zelensky a dictator in deepening rancor over Russian talks. The statement, the tweet that President Trump made about President Zelensky, which I think we're all familiar with, no president has ever made a statement like that in history about an ally. If President Zelensky had ever made a statement like that about President Trump would have probably sent American bombers to bomb Ukraine instead of the Russians. I know President Zelensky has to be diplomatic and will continue to be diplomatic. But if he were to listen to me, he would release an open letter to the world addressed to President Trump. And this is what I would suggest. Dear President Trump, for 3 years, my country has endured the unthinkable. Ukraine's cities lie in ruin. Our children grow up under the shadow of missiles, and our people continue to fight, not for conquest, not for wealth, but for something fundamental, the right to exist as a free and sovereign nation. Vladimir Putin is responsible for this invasion. It was his tanks that crossed our borders, his bombs that fell on our homes, his soldiers that commit unspeakable atrocities. He is a dictator who jails and murders his opponents, silences free speech, and has plunged Russia into an era of fear and repression. And yet, in the past few weeks, you have shown deference to him. None to Ukraine, the country that has fought and bled to defend the very democratic principles that America claims to champion. You have called me a dictator without elections, and worse in recent tweets, while shaking the hand of a man who assassinates those who challenge him. You have repeated Russian propaganda that Ukraine could have made a deal to prevent this war, as if we had been willing to hand over our land, our people, and our independence to an imperial tyrant. You have sent your envoys to negotiate with Putin without Ukraine, without NATO, legitimizing his war and making concessions that no free nation could accept. And now you demand that Ukraine turn over its national wealth to the United States in exchange for support, half of our oil, gas, and rare minimal revenues, totaling sums that far exceeds any legitimate request. This is not an alliance. This is not even a deal. This is exploitation of our nation. Mr. President, you are praised for the art of the deal. This is no deal. It is a surrender, not just Ukraine, but American principles. You are telling Putin aggression is rewarded, democracy is disposable. America is no longer interested in a free world. You do not need to stand with Ukraine because it benefits us. You need to stand with Ukraine because abandoning us means abandoning everything the United States has fought for since its founding. Ukraine will not bow to Putin, and we will not bow to ultimatums. Our people will fight with or without Trump's support, but history will long remember both those who stood for freedom and others, tyrants who butcher us. That's the kind of statement Trump deserves. NATO membership for Ukraine right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you to the Bowling Green Association. Again, without you, we don't have this honor. Ukraine isn't seen. They don't see us in Ukraine gathering here in Ukraine, so we're very grateful. And you said you were going to be a little rough, but that's a New York love tap. That's if I can yell at a 19-year-old in the Yankees outfield for missing a ball, I can certainly tell somebody in a very prestigious manner, let's do better. Let's do better for Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce a couple of people from the Ukrainian community to speak on this day. Having just returned from Ukraine, I can 100% guarantee you that the love that's demonstrated here by a Ukrainian flag and the American flag standing together is what is expressed by everyday ordinary Ukrainians who simply say thank you for keeping up what you've done. It is expressed on the street, and it expressed in the images that they see on television and on social media of what happens at events like this today. And with that, I would like to bring to the microphone our next speaker, somebody who has been photographed and shared on social media so many times because he does make the effort, not just to advocate for Ukraine when he travels to Washington, speaks to elected officials, but he makes the time to help organize everyday New Yorkers to stand in Times Square, to stand here down in this financial district, to stand where they can and protest in the name of Ukraine, rally in support of Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Oleksandr Taran from Svitanok.
On behalf of myself as the president of Svitanok and our incredible team, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. Dear distinguished guests, Arthur, thank you very much, dear consulate. I remember that night as if it were yesterday. On the evening of the February 23rd, I was going about my usual chores when I glanced at the television. Suddenly, the breaking news banner appeared, explosions in Kyiv, my hometown. My heart stopped. Ukraine was under attack. We would later learn the grim timeline of that morning, as minute by minute, Russia launched its full-scale assault. 3:55 a.m., bombing of Mariupol. 3:59 a.m., Russian forces breached Ukraine's borders. 4 a.m., just like Hitler, Putin announced his so-called special military operation. 5 o'clock in the morning, missiles began to rain on Ukrainian cities. At 6:05, the first air raid siren blares in Kyiv. 6:42 a.m., President Zelensky declares martial law. And so it began. The war that upended millions of lives in a matter of hours, and the war that we as Ukrainian Americans have been fighting in our own way ever since. I still recall how we mobilized that very day for a protest in Times Square. Thousands of Ukrainians, many longtime immigrants, took to the streets in spontaneous cry for justice, demanding immediate global action. But as the world soon learned, this war will not be over in days or weeks. It would demand relentless courage from the Ukrainians and steadfast support from our allies worldwide. This belief quickly turned into heartbreak, anger and urgency. Our phones buzzed with messages from loved ones, some saying final goodbyes from bomb shelters, others taking up arms or fleeing for safety. In response, the Ukrainian diaspora in New York and across the United States sprang into action. Overnight, humanitarian aid drives and rallies became a daily ritual. Not just demand action, but to support one another as we carried the weight of worry for those back home. And this tragedy, if this tragedy shown us anything, it is the immeasurable strength and unity of our people. In crisis, our identity becomes an anchor. Each vyshyvanka at a rally, each recitation of our anthem, each Ukrainian flag hoisted high in New York City is an act of defiance against the tyranny. We also realized that we could not fight this battle alone. The commitment of our American friends has become vital. When we march in Times Square or gathered at Bowling Green, we saw people from all backgrounds who understood that Ukrainians' fight for sovereignty is a fight for freedom everywhere. The generosity of American families welcoming displaced Ukrainians, volunteers packing medical supplies, and local leaders expediting visas. This is what solidarity looks like. Over the past years, New York has become a new home for many Ukrainians fleeing the war. Parents arrived clutching their children's hands, carrying little more than backpacks, stepping off planes into a city known for its resilience and acceptance. And in return, New York opened its arms to them. We thank Honorable Mayor Adams and city officials for championing assistance programs, ensuring our community finds stability in uncertain times. But friends, this war is far from over. Each day brings new devastation. Another mother mourns a fallen son. Another village is reduced to rubble. Russia's brutality has been relentless, targeting civilians, destroying hospitals, schools, employing nothing short of terror. Terror is what defines Russia. Russia is the enemy. Our responsibility remains. We speak truth to power, demand continued support for Ukraine, and ensure that the world does not look away. As we gather here not just to grieve what's been lost, but to reaffirm that we believe in the right of every nation to self-determination, the value of freedom over fear, and the unbreakable bond between those who refuse to let injustice prevail. 3 years into this war, we will not allow the world's attention to fade. Never. Our determination has only grown. As we stand in this historic place, preparing to raise the Ukrainian flag, once again in the heart of New York City, let us remember our collective voice has power. Tonight on Times Square from 5 to 9 p.m., where we'll do a large rally. Please join. We have seen that when ordinary people unite behind a just cause, governments and institutions do listen. We must keep this momentum alive, demanding sanctions, accountability, and unwavering support for Ukraine's defense. In closing, I ask you to remember the fateful night, how swiftly the world turned upside down for millions of Ukrainians. And then look at where we stand now. 3 days turned into 3 years, but still defiant, still grieving, yet unyielding in our hope for a free and sovereign Ukraine. May that hope guide us, and may our solidarity remind the world that no act of terror, no barrage of missiles can extinguish the spirit of the people fighting for their homeland, for Ukraine. Thank you for standing with us. May we stand together until the day we can finally say victory is with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini! Slava nacії! Україна! Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I was just in Ukraine. Our next speaker probably predated my first visit by a couple of years, but she has always been so invested in the future of Ukraine's people, which is why when she became the CEO of Razom, Razom for Ukraine, those of you who have seen not just their work online, but also in the big giant billboards we see across the city sometime, especially right after the war began, imploring people to understand that Ukraine exists, imploring people to do what they can, even on a regular, everyday basis, to donate cent by cent, penny by penny, just like Ukrainian immigrants did when they first arrived in this city. That is why we're grateful for our next speaker's leadership. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, the CEO of Razom, Dora Chomiak.
Thank you, Andrij. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Dora Chomiak. I am the CEO of Razom for Ukraine. Razom means together in Ukrainian, and I'm glad to be together with all of you here today in the heart of my native New York City as a daughter of two immigrants who were welcomed by this city after World War II. 3 years ago today, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But the war did not begin in 2022. It began over a decade ago when Russia first occupied Ukrainian land. Since then, Ukraine has had to fight, not just for its territory, but for its sovereignty, for its right to exist. Earlier this month, I was in Kyiv and in Kharkiv with my Razom colleagues. And there's one thing from them that I want to pass along to you today from that visit. In Ukraine, people are not freaking out. They're figuring it out. They aren't panicking. They're persevering. They aren't waiting. They're acting. What I saw in Ukraine, what I heard, beyond the Iranian Shaheds and the Russian missiles in the skies above, it wasn't fear. It was resolve. Because Ukraine has not had the luxury of despair. Despair doesn't defend cities. Despair doesn't rebuild homes. Despair doesn't win wars. Action does. New York City is a city of people who take action. This is why Ukrainians and their allies are gathering across the world, not just to mark this anniversary, but to make sure the world does not look away, to remind our leaders what this fight is about, what Ukrainians are sacrificing for. It's the right to defend their homes, their families, their faiths, their future. And not just the future of Ukraine, but the future of any nation whose ancestors fought and won their own battles for freedom. So if you stand with Ukraine, don't just say it, show it. Call your members of Congress, demand their support. Meet with your local officials, and I'm so glad that we have the opportunity here today. Make sure they understand what's at stake. Go to town halls, town councils. Tell your politicians to speak up. Tell your friends about what you hear, what you heard, and what you will hear today. Because make no mistake, this war is clear-cut. It is as clear-cut as any war in the 21st century. And to pretend otherwise is not just to do a disservice to those who are fighting for freedom. It is a gift to those who are trying to destroy it. Here in Bowling Green, a place where generations have gathered to stand for justice, we say what we already know. Ukraine will endure. But endurance is not passive. It is active. It requires effort. It requires persistence. It requires us to work together, Razom, to do what we can, where we can, with what we have, to remind the world that Ukraine is still here with us, still fighting, still standing, and most importantly, still free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dora. And to finish the first half of our program, I would like to ask a friend, an actor, an activist, co-founder of Rebirth.Ukraine, a board member of probably more organizations than I'm currently the board member of, and somebody who also is recognized because of his distinctive looks. In every social media post of a rally I've seen in New York, I'm often seeing Vsevolod on the streets, and more importantly now in breathtaking performances that are happening with the Ukrainian community. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vsevolod Myrnyi.
Thank you, United States. Thank you, New York City, for support of Ukraine, for support of Ukrainians. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to main people for all Ukrainians. It's our soldiers who defending Ukraine and defending whole civilized world. And here we have some of them with us. Thank you. I want to be brief on my speech. And unfortunately, which is important right now, again, Russia started unprovoked invasion to Ukraine on February 24, and no alternatives. Putin is a dictator, and we should remember this. Russia erased so many Ukrainian cities. Russia killed so many civilians and children, and we want justice. Ukrainians want fair peace, and fair peace will be then Ukraine will win, and Ukraine will win. Slava Ukraini!
Ladies and gentlemen, before I ask our next person to the microphone, I will ask everybody to acknowledge what Vsevolod just mentioned. After that, I would like to ask my dear friend Viktoriia Viennikova, who is honored artist of Ukraine, but also she's an honorary ambassador from the city of Kharkiv, to speak to our souls with her song. To that, we have heard what has been taken. We have heard what we are remembering. I would ask for those of you who are seated, if possible, to stand for a moment of silence for all those we have lost.
Тиша навкруги, і тільки чути як мамини слова летіли в ніч на небеса. Бачиш, сину мій, свічка не згаса, до віку буде вже, горітиме вона, як пішов юнак в полум'я так, там біля тополі калина росте, мамини очі чекають тебе, сива у роз розпачі плаче, сина все чекає, та в Бога вже його душа. Мам, я в бою за волю пішов вдалечінь, за правду і волю нових поколінь, за тих, хто у морі далеко, і крилами лелеки повернуться живі. Рік вже проминув, прийшла нова весна, а спокою в душі не було, не було, та й вже нема. Там батько змучений, сам торує шлях, по ньому мав іти син його, а сина його вже нема. Де заснув юнак, кров'ю палає мак, там біля тополі калина росте, мамини очі чекають тебе, сива у розпачі плаче, сина все чекає, та в Бога вже його душа. Мам, я в бою за волю пішов вдалечінь, за правду і волю нових поколінь, за тих, хто у морі далеко, і крилами лелеки повернуться живі. Слава Україні! 3 роки невтомної боротьби, 3 роки незламності. Українці мають право бути почутими. Співаємо разом. Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. Червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. Не журися, червона калина, маєш дивний цвіт. Не журися, славна Україно, маєш дивний рід. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. А тепер ви! Ой, у лузі чогось іще, а ми тую ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. прославляти по усьому світу наших захисників. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну, гей, розвеселимо. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну, гей, розвеселимо. Слава Україні!
Ladies and gentlemen, Viktoriia Viennikova, not just honored artist of Ukraine, but also here on behalf of her beloved city of Kharkiv as an honorary ambassador. I implore you all to take a seat. Early this morning, while Ukraine was under active rocket attack, 13 world leaders arrived in Kyiv. 24 more added their voices on an international call to support Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are not just honored by the appearance of various elected officials, state and city officers here from the United States, but various diplomats from around the world who we are honored to have standing with us. And I would first like to introduce to the microphone and ask you to welcome him, a representative of the Ukrainian government, Mr. Serhiy Ivanchov from the Consulate General of Ukraine in New York.
Distinguished guests, honorable elected officials, diplomatic colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, шановна українська громада. Today we mark 3 years of Russian barbaric invasion of Ukraine, an unprecedented large-scale war that Putin unleashed on the European continent. 3 years of our resistance. The great people of the great Ukraine, the people who stood the first 3 terrible days and didn't fall on the 4th and won the 5th day, and then a month, and then 6 months, and now 3 years. Battles for freedom, battles for life. Unfortunately, Russian unprovoked war continues, and Ukraine still needs international support more than ever. Ukraine needs a reliable and clear system of security guarantees, one that ensures that this war will never return and that Russians will never again destroy lives. We are grateful to all international partners who stand side by side with Ukraine, providing unprecedented amounts of military, financial, political, legal, humanitarian, and energy assistance, and applying powerful economic sanctions against the aggressor state. We would like to particularly thank to the Mayor of New York City, Erick, Office of International Affairs, honorable representatives of state and city, and of course to all Americans, all New Yorkers, for unwavering support of Ukraine and Ukrainian people in the struggle against Russian barbaric invasion. And of course, special words of thanks to our defenders, as well as presented here Ukrainian fighters, for protecting Ukraine, for their strength, courage, endurance, and patriotism. We strive for the end of the war in Ukraine, a just peace, a strong and lasting peace. And for this, we need to fight and to be together. We all need peace. Ukraine, Europe, America, everyone in the world. Peace is always a common cause, especially the peace we must leave for all future generations. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
I would next like to introduce our next speaker on behalf of the government of Poland and, of course, all these wonderful diplomats for here. I would like for you to welcome the Consul General of Poland, Mateusz Sakowicz.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, as we mark the 3rd anniversary of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, I stand before you not only as the Consul General of Poland, I stand as a neighbor, as a friend, as an ally, to all the Ukrainian people. The flag raising symbolizes courage, resilience. It symbolizes unwavering commitment to freedom. And in light of this, I joined previous speakers in recognizing the presence of the Ukrainian Army veterans. I thank you for your sacrifice. I thank you for defending your homeland, but I also thank you for defending my home country, Poland. Since day one of the invasion, Poland has done its part. Actually, as many other countless nations represented here today. We've been providing military assistance, we've been providing humanitarian aid, and we've been doing diplomatic advocacy. And we will continue to do so for as long as it takes. We will stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. The outcome of this ongoing war will shape European future, but even more so, it will define our shared perception of notions such as justice, democracy, and rule of law. I thank you for your attention. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you very much. Dziękuję bardzo. And thank you to all the foreign voices here as well. And I also thank the ethnic communities who have been supporting us. That includes the Polish-American Congress here in the United States. That includes the American Jewish Congress. That includes the Joint Baltic National Committee as well. All of those who have opened their hearts to Ukrainians here, we thank you. Ukraine thanks you. Earlier, I had the pleasure of introducing a fellow New Yorker, Arthur Piccolo, who said things in a New York way. I'm going to introduce another New Yorker. A great man, a man who has stood in support of Ukraine, not just when the full-fledged war began in 2022, but he has been in almost every public event I have seen in support of Ukraine. Representing his district in this New York State Assembly, please welcome our next speaker, Michael Novakhov.
Thank you so much for coming here today. You know, this spot of the city is always a little cold and windy. And, but imagine how cold and windy it is for the Ukrainian soldiers to fight on the battlefield. These heroes know how it is. In my humble opinion, Ukraine is winning this war, and I will explain why. Because if you have an army which is 3 to 4 times less than your army, when you don't have enough ammunition, you're winning this war. When you're taking over the Kursk region of Russia, you're winning this war. And you know why? Because of the highest morale of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian soldiers. Morale, this is what wins the war. Because Ukrainian soldiers know what they're fighting for. They're fighting for their country. They're fighting for freedom. The Russian soldiers have no idea what they are doing there. And this is the reason why Ukraine will never lose this war. Ukraine is already winning and will win this war. And I'm absolutely positive about that. Just a few days ago, on Friday, on Brighton Beach, where this is my district, where the majority of the Ukrainian community resides, we had an amazing event, a concert to support a great cause. We collected $20,000 for injured Ukrainian children, because children don't know what politics is. They just simply don't understand why they're being killed, why their parents are being killed, what for, what is the reason, you know? A few months before the war began, before the Russian invasion began, one of the Russian ministers, I think his last name is Kozak, he was born in Ukraine, and his family, members of his family in Ukraine, he was begging Putin not to start the war, saying that Ukrainians are ready to negotiate. Putin declined because he wants a war. He wants a blood. That's just the kind of person he is. And that's the problem. So, Mr. President, I voted 3 times for you. I am a Republican, but Mr. President, Putin is the dictator, not Zelensky. Russia started the war, not Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much. I know it's a bit cold, but I'm pretty sure those Ukrainian flags make it warmer for you and for us, for all of us. Щиро дякую. Thank you. And Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава! Thank you, Assemblymember Novakhov. And thank you for being at the event in Brooklyn on Friday night. And thank you for remembering about the children. It's one of the great things that this city has done, has been welcoming the Ukrainian children, some of which were struggling to find a place where they can find Ukrainian language instruction, finding schools that will welcome them. And it's New York that has led the way in that. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Assistant Commissioner Erick Salgado from the city of New York.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erick Salgado. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. I'm here in behalf of Honorable Erick Adam and also our Commissioner Castro. I want to acknowledge the presence of all the dignitaries over here, especially the Acting Consul General of Ukraine, New York, Serhiy Ivanchov. Also, I would like to acknowledge the Director of Communication and Media of Ukraine Congress Committee, Andrij Dobriansky, and thank you for all you do for the Ukrainian diaspora here in New York City. I also want to acknowledge our Deputy Commissioner for International Affairs, Dilip, that have been working very closely in all this event. Also, our colleague from Community Affairs, Anastasia, and overall, I would like to also acknowledge our Moya Immigrant Affairs data engineer, Oleksandr, who happened to be also from Ukraine. We are proud of you, Alex, and he's a great access to our office. It is an honor to be here today for our Ukrainian brother and sister, to celebrate our strong community of Ukrainians here in New York City, and celebrate how much Ukrainians have uplifted and made our city even greater from the earlier wave of Ukrainian arrival here in East Village to the recently arrived Ukrainians who have made this home here in Brooklyn and in Staten Island. Today is also an important day to remember what Ukraine has faced over the last 3 years. 3 years ago, in my office, where I oversee contingency service, we start to hear the first call from the first family coming through different programs here in the city. I was able to help myself, many families, to get the first aid they needed to establish here in the city. And it was a pleasure to learn so much then when I tried to accommodate many of them with the language they speak, some of them in Ukrainian, some of them in Russia, but the help was given to them, and many of them have integrated here in the city. We are here today to offer our condolence for all who have been lost and who have suffered from this war. We are also here to celebrate your community, and we remain dedicated to support Ukrainian New Yorkers here in the city. I also want to say that beside working for the city as an assistant commissioner, I serve as a pastor in South Brooklyn, very close to Brighton Beach. So we are constantly working with the Ukrainian community. One of my churches in West 7th Street between S and T, we have a Ukrainian church worshiping over there for the last 10 years. So it's a pleasure to work not on the city level, but on my personal level with this beautiful community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Salgado, and thank you again to the City of New York for welcoming the immigrants, those displaced. I know personally that there are displaced Ukrainians here that the first person they heard speak from the City of New York that said things are going to be okay was Commissioner Castro. And it's because of the professionalism that the office has. Thank you so much. And now, with the final remarks and acknowledgements, please welcome the Deputy Commissioner of International Affairs for the City of New York, Dilip Chauhan.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. As mentioned, my name is Dilip Chauhan. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs. It is such a great honor to be this historic flag-raising ceremony at the Bowling Green. First, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Consulate of Ukraine in New York, the Permanent Mission of Ukraine in the United Nations. Thank you for inviting our office to be part of this important and meaningful event. These days holds deep meaning as we reflect on the hardships Ukraine has faced over the past 3 years. It also serves as a reminder of the strength, courage, and determination of the Ukrainian people. I am proud that this country and city have stood in solidarity from the very beginning. Together, we remain committed to justice, peace, and standing on the right side of the history. New York City is home to over 150,000 Ukrainians, the largest Ukrainian community in the United States. Yes. For many, this war has had profound impact. Families have been separated, lives disrupted, and communities torn apart. Yet through it all, we have witnessed remarkable courage and determination. Today, as we raise this flag, we honor the victims of this war. We remember their sacrifice, we stand with their families, and we hold on to hope for a future where Ukraine is free and at peace. Also, I would like to acknowledge other Consul General and the Assemblymember and our Assistant Commissioner, Erick Salgado, to be a part of this historic event. Also, I have the message from the New York City Mayor, Erick Adams, so I would like to present this honor on behalf of the New York City Mayor, Erick Adams. Yes, please. It's a long citation, but just I will read very briefly. Whereas Ukrainian people throughout the 5 boroughs have long enhanced life in our diverse city, and they will continue to play a key role as we take bold steps to grow our economy and to forge a safer, fairer, and more prosperous future for all. I am, Erick Adams, honored and deeply moved on this anniversary to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainian New Yorkers as we raise their flag and say in a single, unified voice, united against aggression and Slava Ukraine, glory of Ukraine. Now, therefore, I, Erick Adams, Mayor of the City of New York, on Monday, February 24th, 2025, do hereby confer this citation on Viktoriia Viennikova. So I would like to request Assistant Commissioner Erick Salgado to please join with me to present this honor. And also Consul General, please join.
For a picture, yeah. Thank you so much.
Erick, join.
Congratulations.
As mentioned earlier, whereas the most diverse city in the nation, it is imperative that we celebrate our differences as continue to strengthen our great metropolis. From Brooklyn's enhancing East Village enclave, Ukrainian culture is alive and well in our communities. Therefore, I, Erick, Mayor of the City of New York, do hereby proclaim Monday, February 24th, 2025, in the City of New York as a Ukrainian Heritage Day. So I would like to request Honorable Consul General and other dignitary to please present and accept this honor.
Take a picture.
Thank you. Now let's raise the flag.
I ask the elected officials and our guests who have been standing with us who would like to join us in the raising of the flag around the flagpole. And I ask once again our delightful, wonderful singer, Viktoriia Viennikova. She will first sing the United States anthem and then the Ukrainian anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight on the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming on the rocket's red glare, their burns bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave on the land, on the free, at the home of the brave. Ще не вмерли України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Слава Україні!
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for supporting Ukraine. Keep warm out there. Keep Ukrainian in our hearts. And thank you. Thank you from every Ukrainian. Thank you for supporting Ukraine.